the relationship is going very well. I can say that for the past 2 years now, the relationship has gotten off to a very good start. We are in the process of deepening the areas of defense and security, but also education. Later on, we'll focus on the commercial aspects and other things. We have staggered the different areas so that we can exchange a lot, share a lot of experiences.
It was a live political debate broadcast from a New York City studio where the lights were bright, but the tension was palpable. The stage was set for what was supposed to be a diplomatic conversation about African sovereignty and U.S. foreign policy, with former Trump spokesperson Karoline Leavitt on one side and Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the leader of Burkina Faso, on the other. The debate, however, quickly shifted from politics to a confrontation of raw human truths. When Traoré calmly challenged America's actions in West Africa, Karoline's voice snapped with disdain. "Sit down, boy," she said, pointing a finger as if to assert control. The room fell silent. The viewers at home gasped in shock. Social media exploded. But Traoré didn't flinch. He didn't yell. Instead, he stared deeply at Karoline, silently absorbing her words, and then spoke with quiet strength. He stood up, no anger, no rage, just the composed dignity of a man who had seen war and buried brothers. "I come from a place where boys are forced to become men before they learn to dream," he began. He paused, his voice steady. "You can call me boy, but where I come from, boys carry nations on their backs." The words hung in the air, breaking through the usual political banter. Karoline's smirk faded as Traoré's voice grew softer, almost like he was speaking to all of America. "I buried my father under the open sky," he continued. "There were no cameras, no speeches, just silence and my mother's grief. He was killed during a coup funded by outside powers." The audience was stunned. A tear formed in the eye of an elderly black woman in the front row. This wasn't a debate anymore. This was truth. Traoré didn't just defend himself, he spoke for every person whose suffering was ignored, every mother who carried the weight of her country. As he spoke, his voice never wavered, and the studio lights seemed to dim, reflecting the growing heaviness of the moment. "I come from a place where boys fight, so others don't starve," he said. "Boys lead, because no one else will. I studied under candlelight, because the lights never came back on after colonialism left." The room stood frozen. For the first time in the debate, it wasn't about politics. It was about something much deeper: humanity. Karoline sat in stunned silence. The studio erupted in applause, not out of pity, but out of respect for a leader who spoke with such power and grace. Traoré had not only silenced her, he had made her small. He went on to talk about his mother, a woman who worked tirelessly, walking miles in worn-out sandals to provide for him, hiding her hunger so he wouldn't feel it. His words painted a picture of sacrifice and resilience that Karoline had never understood. As the applause continued, the conversation shifted. A U.S. Army veteran on the panel, Colonel Jacob Whitmore, stood up. "I served in Liberia," he said, voice trembling. "I've seen what boys like him face. Calling him boy isn't a debate, it's humiliation." The room fell silent, and the colonel walked over to Traoré. "Captain, thank you," he said, shaking his hand. "Not just for defending your people, but for reminding us what true leadership looks like." Traoré nodded in quiet respect, and the room broke into applause again. But Karoline remained frozen, her attempt to dominate the conversation failing. In the face of undeniable truth, just when Karoline thought she could regain control, Traoré turned calmly to her and said, "It's not about sainthood, it's about humanity." The crowd erupted into applause again. Karoline tried to brush it off, but her voice faltered. She was losing, and she knew it. "What's next?" she snapped. "We apologize for being Americans." A young black student in the crowd stood up. "No," she said, voice cracking. "You apologize for being cruel." It was a sharp, unexpected moment of truth that shifted the entire dynamic. Karoline, now desperate, tried to recover, but Traoré's presence in the room was too powerful. His calm, unwavering response had shattered her. As the debate continued, Traoré pulled out a letter, an old, creased piece of paper written by his younger brother 2 days before he was killed during a protest for food. The letter said, "Big brother, if I die, promise me they won't forget why." The room went silent. The letter, now unfolded, revealed something much deeper than politics. Traoré wasn't just speaking for himself, he was speaking for every life lost, every voice silenced by injustice. As the studio became still, Traoré looked at the camera. "You don't need to know where Burkina Faso is to understand dignity," he said softly. "You just have to know what it feels like to be invisible." And with that, he had one. Not because he forced it, but because his truth was louder than anything Karoline Leavitt had to say. Traoré had exposed a deep wound in America's heart, and in doing so, had turned a political debate into a profound moment of reckoning. The broadcast went viral. sparking an outpouring of support for Traoré. Even Karoline's critics began to recognize that she had underestimated the power of truth. As the show ended, a final twist unfolded. The camera cut to a young girl, the same child from the hospital who had drawn the Burkina Faso and U.S. flags. "You were the bravest," she said to Traoré. "Next time someone calls you boy, I'll tell them to stand up like you." The world watched as the camera cut to a room in silence, no longer just a political moment, but a symbol of courage, dignity, and the power of human truth.